Tokyo Ghoul. Tokyo Ghoul was a good anime that could have been great. I'm going to tell you why I think it didn't quite reach its full potential. Tokyo Ghoul is a 2014 anime by Studio Pierrot. It takes place in an alternative reality Tokyo, one where creatures called ghouls live. Now these ghouls are, they look like humans, they act like humans, they have the feelings and wants that humans have. The only thing is they can't eat human food. They have to eat the flesh of humans in order to live. So they are the monsters that lurk in the dark. And they hunt humans because they have to. Now, in turn, humans hunt back. There is actually a government organization called the CCG that is specifically tasked with hunting down ghouls and eliminating them with extreme prejudice. There is no trial, there's no capture. If you are found to be a ghoul, then you are killed on the spot by the CCG investigators. So that is the setting that Tokyo Ghoul takes place in. The main story follows a young man. He's a college student named Kaneki Ken. One day, Kaneki Ken sees this pretty girl at his local coffee shop, and he goes up to her, figures he'll ask her out on a date. She says yes, and they go on a date. And later that night, he's walking her back to her house, and she attacks him. She's a ghoul. She's trying to eat him. This is going to be a spoiler review, in case you haven't figured it out by now. So she chases Kaneki Ken into this abandoned or shut down construction site. And you still see steel beams fall from the construction site, crushing both of them beneath it. And the next scene is Kaneki waking up in a hospital bed. And they say, oh, we transplanted the organs from the girl who didn't make it into you. Now he is a half ghoul, half human hybrid. He can't eat human food anymore, but he still has all of his experiences and memories of being human. And now Kaneki has to learn to live in the world as not fully a ghoul, but not fully a human. So he winds up going back to that coffee shop, which is actually run by friendly ghouls. They take him in, they try to teach him how the world works. He meets a young waitress there that he kind of has a thing for, and he meets the manager, who's the wise, mysterious man who helps take care of ghouls. So that is the basic story for Tokyo Ghoul. And there are two major themes. One I'm sure you've already cottoned on to, but the first theme is that who's the real monster? Is it humans? Is it ghouls? They're both, they both hurt people without any kind of remorse in a lot of cases, and yet they're pacifists on both sides of the equation. So really it's about they're both two sides of the same coin. I feel like this is a very common theme. You've seen it done in several monster films. Is Frankenstein's monster the real bad guy, or is it the human villagers? It is that story. So that is the bare bones theme. There is another theme that is actually about how you deal with conflict or adversity, and I'll get into that one a little bit later. I think it's slightly more interesting. I'm going to start off with the things that I didn't like, and this is going to kind of take you through a rundown of the series, because my biggest problem with Tokyo Ghoul is the pacing. This is really where I feel like that kind of wasted potential was. I mean, yes, the plot does kind of let you down in a few places where they could have gone for something a little more dramatic or a little less kind of paint by numbers in this type of story, but the pacing is the biggest problem. It starts out, and those first couple episodes, you are into it. You're like, yeah, blood and, danger and monsters and, oh, what's gonna happen? Oh, now he's a ghoul. Oh my gosh, you're totally into it. And then it gets to about episode 4, and you're like, okay, so we've slowed down a bit. It's not terrible, but it's not great. And then it just starts meandering. It kind of focuses on some characters that maybe aren't essential to the story. It repeats itself a little bit. I feel like it loses that momentum from those first couple episodes, those real gotcha, you're always tense, really invested episodes, and it really slows down. And not in a way that it's just letting you catch your breath before the next big thing. It actually lets it slow down a little too much, to the point where you start to be like, okay, can we speed this along to the next plot point? To be fair, though, its strongest parts are its beginning and its end. The ending of the season is really gripping. I did say this is a spoiler review. He actually gets tortured by the Aogiri tree people, and the Aogiri tree is the bad ghoul group. They hunt people, they hurt people, they don't seem to care. All they're concerned about is power. So he gets kidnapped by them and tortured. And that entire section is just gripping. Again, you're on the edge of your seat, high tension, high drama, really well done. But it does have kind of like this middle area dead zone, where I feel like it could lose viewers. And it's even more pronounced, for me at least, in Season 2. So Season 1 ends with him being tortured. Season 2, he joins Aogiri Tree, which I don't feel is very in character, but that's another issue I had that I'll talk about a little later. So Season 2, it kind of deals a lot more with the side characters, which it would be nice to have more development for side characters, yes, but it does so at the expense of her main character. There was a point in Season 2 where I was kind of watching it, I was like, man, I remember when Kaneki was the protagonist, because we'd gone off on so many other side characters that I felt like we'd completely lost Kaneki in the story. There's, in fact, a crowbarred in romance between Kotaro Amon, one of the CCG investigators, and Akira Mado, another of the CCGS investigators. And they kind of have a thing, but their chemistry is not great. And they do one of those things where she actually looks at him at one point in the episode and she goes, and then by the end of the episode they're kissing. Personally, I'm not a fan of that trope, that idea. She either hates him for the part he had in her father's death, or she's attracted to him. I feel like you can't just have it both ways. I get kind of annoyed when stories of all manner kind of put that idea in there. It really felt contrived, and I kind of dreaded those plotting scenes between the two of them. So yeah, it slows down very much in Season 2, and then it has real trouble picking its momentum back up, because we've been away from Kaneki for so long, it's hard to get reinvested in his story almost. There's a big battle for Anteku, and it kind of feels like maybe not that much is at stake. The coffee shop burns down, but the vulnerable characters have all been sent away in advance. And again, you almost feel detached from the ones that are present, because you've kind of jumped around different characters during Season 2, so you don't feel like you're with them in their story anymore. There's actually a big death in that one too. Hide dies, and you're supposed to be shocked by this, and it was really kind of a, okay, that sucks. I mean, I just had felt so disconnected from the rest of the story, but when that shocking reveal happens, it really wasn't the gut punch it was supposed to be for me. So yeah, that would be my biggest problem, and again, that goes to wasted potential, because I feel like this was such a great idea. I really wish that it had been better executed. Another problem I had with it, I kind of mentioned a little bit, is Kaneki's character seems to jump around. It's a bit sporadic, his character development. He starts off as the very quiet, bookish, non-aggressive type, and then by the end of Season 2, he's Neo from the Matrix. And this all takes place over the course of a year, and there's no indication that ghouls learn martial arts any better or faster than regular humans do, and yet by the end of a year, he's all of a sudden like Superman. He started off where Toka was stronger than he was, and then by the midpoint of Season 1, all of a sudden he's stronger than Toka, and they don't really give you an adequate explanation for why this is the case. They kind of like, oh, he's training with this muscular guy Yomo in his off hours, but then there's like, well, in his off hours, like he's not, on top of a mountain training all day long, DBZ style. So I feel like there's not sufficient sufficient explanation for why he becomes such a badass so quickly. Just in terms of physical ability, maybe this has something to do with the cannibalism thing that they throw in. And that is another thing that I wish they'd done a little better, is explain the world. I get the sneaking suspicion that the manga is much more detailed, and I actually quite want to read the manga now that I've seen the entirety, the first 2 seasons of the Tokyo Ghoul anime. I do kind of want to read the manga because I really had this feeling that there wasn't as much detail in the anime series. And I understand you have to compress, but like I said, there were parts where it just felt really slow. It feels like they left things in that didn't need to be in, and they cut things out that would have better explained their world. One is the Kagune is this appendage that all of the ghouls have that comes out of their back, and there are different types of Kagune apparently. But the anime never sufficiently explains what's the difference between the different types. Do they do different things? Are they different colors? Are they in different places? And I really wish they'd kind of perhaps gone into a bit more detail on that, or even just like a quick, text box kind of thing talking about it. And then there's also 2 characters, Koma and Yurimi, who are baristas at the Ghoul coffee shop, who have dark, mysterious pasts, but again, it's not really adequately explained, and I feel like there is some major showdown going down in the Anteiku battle between them and the Ghoul investigators, but because we haven't really explained any of who these characters are, it feels like it's missing that emotional weight that it should have. I feel like I'm supposed to be like, oh man, it's these 2 people again, what? But I'm not there. It's just not gripping me that way. So that, again, was an issue for me while watching Tokyo Ghoul. And I do kind of want to pick up the manga now, so let me know if the manga actually explains it better, because I'm quite interested in reading that in the future. One of the other problems I had going back to Kaneki's character was his decision to join Aogiri Tree at the end of season 1. It's kind of a trope in anime that the character decides to go away to become stronger, and he turns his back on all the people, that are important to him, blah, 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 blah. Why? Why did you do that? I feel like that's not a reasonable thing to do. It really feels kind of like out of left field. And I understand that character's just gone through an extremely traumatic event, the torture and everything. And he's actually had a big character change moment, which is one of my favorite parts of the entire series. But I still feel like I wish we'd talked more about the Aogiri Tree decision, or it'd been better explained, because it really does feel out of nowhere. And that goes back to inconsistencies with Kaneki's character, his abilities. It's hard to connect with someone where you feel like their character is jumping around in terms of development. And last, and probably least, in the things that I didn't like, Tsukiyama. Tsukiyama Shu. Jeez, this character started off terrifying. Just so scary, super scary. And then he becomes the comedic relief eventually. Was not nuts about that. I'm not nuts about like he's so gay, like it's coded gay, but it's like, when Japan does these over the top gay stereotypes, that sometimes border on offensive. So I wasn't nuts about that. I was like, this character was so scary, and now he's annoying as all shit. And that has a lot to do, I think, with his voice actor. This was the only voice acting that bothered me in the entire series, was Tsukiyama Shu's voice actor. I think his name is Mamoru Miyano? Yeah. And I just was not a fan. He's a little pitchy, he's a little shrill, and that character just eventually becomes incredibly annoying.
Amore! Heartbreak.
Point where you're like, please get off screen, go away. So that would probably be that kind of sums up what I have disliked about Tokyo Ghoul. Now I'm gonna get into the things that I really did like about it. First off, again, I love the concept for this series. I really think it was a strong idea. I just really wish it kind of been better on execution. Seems like a great, scary, fun concept that you could really sink your teeth into. Pun intended, I guess. I actually love the character animation. I think it's really good. Particularly the Kagunes. They are always fascinating to look at, really beautifully drawn. On the whole, I watched the Japanese version, and I thought the Japanese vocal cast did a great job, again, with the exception of Sugiyama Shu. And I also love the second core theme of the series. I remember how I mentioned earlier that there are kind of two themes. The monsters were all the same theme versus the facing controversy theme. So it's actually a big character moment for Kaneki, but he is being tortured by the Aogiri tree bad guy, Jason. And while he's being tortured, he's thinking back to his own life philosophies. And up to this point, his life philosophy has been
傷つける人より傷つけられる人に優しい人はそれだけで幸せだって僕にそう教えてくれた。
And that is a philosophy his mother had, and she actually worked herself to death trying to take care of a child on her own and take care of her sister, who it's implied has some kind of a money problem, whether it's addiction or gambling or whatever. She worked herself to death trying to take care and not hurt other people. And he, at one point, seems to realize that it's better to fight and try and protect what you have, even if it hurts people and even if it causes more violence in the long run. And I actually thought that was the far more interesting theme, particularly since neither option works for Kaneki. In the first part of the series, he's the passive, I don't want to hurt anybody kind of route, and it gets him tortured. It doesn't protect anybody at the same time. You know, people still die. And bad things still happen to him. But even then, when he decides to become a fighter to try and fight and protect people, people still die. It doesn't work. And I actually quite like this idea of it's the rock and the hard place decision. You have to choose something, but both sides have pitfalls. So I actually quite liked that, and I thought that the series handled it very well. And as an kind of an odd side note, this occurred to me while I was watching, it seemed to me almost kind of an East versus West philosophy kind of thing. It is very Japanese, I think, to be like, I need to put everybody else first. I shouldn't be a bother. I shouldn't make trouble. I need to think about other people and do no harm, even if I wind up getting hurt. Versus a very kind of American or Western cultural idea of protect what's yours first, even if you wind up hurting somebody who's innocent. And by no means am I saying that those are exclusive to those cultures. Absolutely in the West you have people who are do no harm under any circumstance, and absolutely in the East you have people who are like, throw the first punch and, you know, worry about if they were actually a threat later. But as cultural stereotype kind of ideas, I feel like that Kaneki's first idea is very Japanese, and his second idea of trying to fight, even if it winds up hurting people, is more Western or American in specific. It doesn't really bring much to bear on the story. I just thought it was an interesting side idea that kind of occurred to me while I was watching it. But yeah, the fact that I was even thinking about it on that kind of level shows that that was the more interesting theme to me, and I really wish, again, the story had maybe played it up even more. Kind of draw more emphasis onto the fact that it's not working for Kaneki. Like, he's trying, but neither of these options is really working, and sometimes you just can't win. I also love that opening theme. I don't know if I'm just like easy when it comes to opening themes, but this one it started out and I was like, does this sound like some karaoke bullshit? And then as it went on, the more I heard it, the more I got into it. It's like been stuck in my head all week long. I keep hearing that song. So it's actually quite good. I really enjoy the opening theme song. The animation's good too. Yeah, so that is those are my pros and cons for Tokyo Ghoul. In some, though, it's a strong middle of the road kind of like action horror drama anime. It's not the best in that genre by any means, but it's not the worst. And overall, I would have to give it a 6 out of 10. Alright, well that has been my review of Tokyo Ghoul. I'm Alex, this is On Task Reviews. If you liked this video or you want to see more like it, please like and subscribe to our channel. If you completely disagree with me or you want to like start something, tell me about it in the comments, and I will see you all next time.